Janet on occasion, and today we're going to play another campaign lore play. So, yeah, so we're going to carry on, talking about Middenland. But actually, I think I'm going to start just talking about Middenheim. I know we're not quite there yet, but there's a lot to cover, because it's a big city. There's a lot going on there. So, mostly, I'm going to be going from Ashes of Middenheim, which is a 2nd edition roleplay supplement. So, this assumes that the Storm of Chaos has happened, which I much prefer over the End Times, because that was rubbish. So, yeah. So, just, assume that the Chaos Invasion has already happened, and you've got nothing to worry about. Should be able to follow. So, yeah, so we're going to start off with a brief history of Middenheim. According to legend, Middenheim was founded by the god Ulrich himself, to be the centre of his religion in the Old World. Originally, the towering, flat-topped rock upon which the city stands was the base of a high mountain, sacred to to Ulrich's brother Tal, the god of wild places. Tal gave the mountain to Ulrich, and he struck the top of it off with his fist, shattering the top of the mountain and leaving a flat stump where the city was to be. For this reason, the rock is sometimes called the Faustschlag, from an ancient word meaning fist strike. It is also known as the Ulrichsburg. The first humans to settle on the Faustschlag were Teutogen tribesmen more than 2,500 years ago. With the help of the neighbouring dwarf clan, the Teutogens tunnelled up through the rock and established a settlement on the top. Some 50 years later, a young chief of the neighbouring Aboriginal tribe united the human tribes and laid the foundation for the nation that would become the Empire. His name was Sigmar Heldenhammer. He was crowned emperor by the high priest of Ulrich, one of the most prominent deities of these warlike tribes. The modern imperial calendar, IC, as it's referred to, starts with Sigmar's coronation. Sigmar ruled for 50 years before abdicating and leaving the empire that he had founded. He headed east towards the World's Edge Mountains. At Blackfire Pass, he dismissed the last of his bodyguard and travelled on alone. From then, he is lost to history. In the year 63 IC, Wolken, the high priest of Ulrich, received a vision from his god instructing him to build a great temple in Middenheim. It was completed in 113 IC, and has been the centre of the cult of Ulrich ever since. As the years passed, Sigmar came to be revered as a god in his own right, and became the patron deity of the empire. Ulrich remained a popular deity, especially in the northern provinces, but the growing veneration of Sigmar threatened to eclipse his glory. Building tension between the cult of Ulrich in Middenheim and the cult of Sigmar, based in the imperial capital Altdorf, broke out into open hostilities more than once. The Grafs of Middenheim became powerful nobles, and when the electoral system was established for choosing emperors, they could not be ignored. At one time, the Graf of Middenheim held 2 electoral votes, one as the head of the city-state itself, and one as the overlord of Middenland, the province in which the city is situated. Over centuries of political wrangling, and more than one civil war, the rulership of Middenland passed in and out of the hands of the Grafs of Middenheim. In 1547 IC, Graf Heinrich of Middenheim, who was also Grand Duke of Middenland at the time, made a bid for the imperial throne himself, but was narrowly defeated. Declaring the election a sham, he claimed to be the rightful emperor, and the empire was torn by rival claimants to the imperial throne. So began the long civil war, known to imperial historians as the Age of 3 Emperors, although the number of emperors varied over time. The empire was fragmented for 8 long centuries. Chaos cults proliferated unchecked, goblins and worse creatures bred in the forests, and it seemed as though the days of glory were long in the past. To make matters worse, the year 2303 saw a vast and terrible horde of chaos sweep across Kislev and threaten the lands of the empire. It seemed that the empire was doomed, and with it possibly the whole of the Old World. In Nuln, a young nobleman known as Magnus the Pious assembled an army to resist the forces of chaos. On his shield he carried the sign of the twin-tailed comet, the same comet that had presaged the birth of Sigmar 2 millennia before. According to tradition, and in the name of the empire's founder and patron deity, he called for unity in the face of this common enemy. As a follower of Sigmar, Magnus was initially regarded with suspicion in Middenheim. The high priest of Ulrich denounced him as a fraud and a blasphemer. Rumours were even spread that he was a servant of chaos, bent on destroying the empire from within. Magnus entered Middenheim secretly and confronted the high priest in the temple of Ulrich itself. At the heart of the temple burned an everlasting flame, said to have been kindled from the sparks struck on the rock of the Faustschlag by Ulric's fist when he shattered the mountain. Many divine powers were attributed to this flame. It was said that so long as it burnt, the city of the White Wolf enjoyed Ulric's protection and could never fall. It was also widely believed that the flame could not burn anyone who was favoured by Ulric. To the dismay of the High Priest and his followers, Magnus took off his cloak and entered the flame, standing there completely untouched by the fire. Word of the miracle spread like wildfire. People flocked to Magnus, and under his leadership the hordes of chaos were driven back. He was crowned Emperor of a united empire the following year. For the last 200 years, the empire has been united, and Middenheim has taken its place as one of the nation's greatest cities. For devout followers of Ulric, it is the holiest place in the world, and pilgrims flock to the city, bringing great wealth to supplement Middenheim's income from trade. A few years ago, a plot against Graf Boris Todbringer was thwarted, without most of the city's population knowing that anything was wrong. The only visible results were some damage to the south gate and the adjoining causeway, which was quickly repaired, and the sudden replacement of a few high-level officials. So, a quick interlude from talking about Middenheim, because, well, we're fighting Beastmen again, and, yeah, more excuses to talk about Beastmen. So, mainly though, most interesting unit, I think, in this battle is the Cygor. And since we talked about, you know, magic a fair bit, sort of here and there, I think Cygors are, yeah, an interesting one to talk about. As you can see, I've been using the Luminarch to completely, yeah, dishevel him, which is pretty cool. I do love that thing. I've netted a load of guys. It's just fantastic. You will see in this battle, though, I do actually place my Giovanni Mezzo, my Grey Wizard, in a terrible place. He gets swarmed. So yeah, pretty scary for him. But I do get a really good, what's it called? Penandral Pendulum, which is good fun. So yeah, there you go. So I'm going to talk about Cygors while this happens. Oh, I've got to watch it though. Look at that. Oh, what a beaut. That's like half their army completely, yeah, torn apart. Amazing. So anyway, Cygors. The Cygors are distant cousins of the Minotaurs, but because they hail from the most tainted of all of the realms of the old world, they have diverged greatly from their kin. They are huge, hideously malformed giants, similar in form to Minotaurs, yet each possessed of but a single eye in the centre of its forehead. Through this eye, the Cygor is cursed to see not the material realm that mortals perceive, but the ever-shifting winds of chaos as they blow through and around the indistinct, ghostly shapes that populate their world. Assailed by such vision since birth, Cygors are all quite mad. Cygors roam the forests of the old world, smashing through trees they cannot see, and laying waste to anything in their path. They hunger constantly, for they can scarcely perceive the prey other Minotaurs might hunt down and devour. While a Cygor will devour his prey with as much, if not more, greed than a Minotaur, the victim's body is a mere vessel for that which the Cygor truly craves, the soul. Conversely, a Cygor can detect those possessed of magical powers from leagues away, for the souls of these individuals blaze with searing light. These gigantic eldritch predators constantly hunt mages, warlocks and witches, desperate to consume their flesh, and thereby ingest the bright soul within. Cygors are drawn to war by the twisted will of the dark gods, taunted by half-seen visions of light planted by the chaos powers, or by the most powerful of the Bray Shamans. They unwittingly do the will of the dark gods, even though they are cursed to an eternity of pain, bitterness, and insanity. On the field of battle, they will seek out those wielding the powers of magic, as a shark drawn to blood. They carry with them the rune-etched remnants of shattered waystones, temples, and monoliths, for this is the only unliving material they can truly perceive. These boulder-sized missiles they hurl into the ranks of the foe, so they can close with their prey unhindered. The sheer size and ferocity of a Cygor is terrifying enough to mortal men, but those who know of their terrible hunger fear them above all. To the mage, a Cygor is unutterably fearsome, for he knows that of all of the warriors on the field of battle, it is him alone the Cygor wants to catch up in its gnarled and calloused hands. His flesh it wants to tear apart, and his soul it must devour to slake its unending thirst. So yeah, that's the Cygors. So they're pretty cool. I really like them, because the idea of these giant monsters that just see the winds of magic, and they're unbelievable tools for chaos. Because yeah, the waystones that they pick up and, you know, start to throw about, you know, they're there for a reason. They're trying to ward off chaos in the realm. You know, the elves put them there to try and siphon off the winds of magic, you know, to prevent calamity, essentially, you know, to stop the wind magnet from pulling up, you know, stop demons being able to invade. You know, it's very important. So the fact that, you know, the Beastmen are this sort of primal force of chaos, you know, not this sort of calculated, you know, thing like the Warriors of Chaos are, where, you know, they're promised gifts and they're sort of ordered around. No, the Beastmen will basically just go, oh, it's, you know, it's smelling a bit chaos around these parts, let's go mental. You know, all the time it's the moon that sort of triggers them to go out and cause mischief. But, yeah, the Cygors, they're just constantly just breaking things that, you know, are quite important, you know, for the mortal world. So yeah, incredible tools of chaos, and also really terrifying. And yeah, don't want to bump into one if you're a wizard. It's pretty terrifying stuff. So yeah, I really like them. They're yeah, very unique for, you know, sort of like a giant. Usually giants just, they're massive, so they do lots of damage, and that's kind of their thing. Whereas Cygors have got like a whole sort of unique thing about them. So absolutely love them. So upcoming spoiler, I'm about to do a what's called Beast Paths battle, and so for a lot of people are going to be, what the hell are the Beast Paths? Because I mean, it just seems so odd. Suddenly you're in a giant woodland fighting. What's that about? And so yeah, I'm gonna tell you. So the Beast Paths, the vast forests of the old world are crossed by the spider web of paths. Only the Beastmen know. Where these paths cross, there is to be found a site that is in some way significant to the cloven ones. These beast paths are located deep in the forests, far from the towns and highways of man, yet they are far from hidden. Though native to the deep woods, the Beastmen are not natural creatures of concealment and guile. When passing through the dense woodlands, they simply barge their way through the foliage and trample flat the undergrowth. Over millennia of use, the beast paths have become deep ruts in the ground, strewn with bones of the enemy and other detritus. So dense is the undergrowth that grows on the embankments, the chances are that no human tracker or huntsman seeking a beast path would find one other than by pure happenstance. Any huntsman who did stumble upon a beast path would be extremely wise to turn and flee, for a warherd might be travelling the path, and his own bones may soon be added to those discarded upon it. Occasionally, two beastmen warherd will run into one another whilst travelling in the opposite directions along the beast path. In such cases, the chieftains of each tribe will barge their way to the fore and meet in the centre of the pathway to decide which tribe will stand aside and allow the other to pass. Amidst much bravado and exaggerated strutting, the chieftains will engage in vulgar displays of power, until one either stands aside or, far more likely, the two come to blows. The ensuing combat will consist of the two chieftains clashing horns and headbutting each other, until one is knocked unconscious, and the winner determined. The winner's tribe will then pass along the beast pass, the grinning Gauls only pausing to relieve themselves upon the prostrate form of the defeated chieftain. You know what, let's do more Beastmen stuff, because, yeah, we're not going to have a better excuse to talk about Beastmen than this, really, are we? So, I'll talk about the encampments that they have, because they don't have cities. You know, they're basically wild animals. They're crazy. So, yeah, so they live in encampments. So, Beastmen encampments themselves are crude affairs, often consisting of little more than a raging pyre surrounded by a mass of rude burrows and rough pelt barriers. Sometimes other skins, still dripping with gore, will be held up by sticks and branches to form makeshift tents. The more powerful beastmen, such as the Minotaurs and the Bestigors, take up the positions closest to the fire and closest to the food. The smaller Ungors are pushed to the outskirts of the ring. It has been known in winter for many of the weaker beasts to perish. Chaos Warhounds prowl the edges of the campsite, fighting over discarded bones and often preying upon the smallest beastmen. The treetops all around the encampment are haunted by harpies, twisted beings that from a distance appear as winged and shapely human women. These creatures follow the tribe wherever it goes, attracted by the remains of sacrificed victims scattered about the encampment. They squabble constantly for the choicest pickings of the food the beastmen discard. In some camps, hideously mutated chaos spawn are kept in rough pens of sharpened stakes, where they are taunted and starved until set loose in battle. To stumble upon a beastman camp is not only to witness a cacophonous vision of hell in full flow, but also to consign oneself to a grisly and extremely unpleasant death. And with that in mind, I like to think that that's basically what's happening here. You know, we've been, you know, working our way towards Middenheim in the cover of trees, trying to, you know, lay an ambush, and we've come across a warherd. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking has happened here. So, you know, so that's a lark. And yeah, so there's some more information on you know, the sort of the forests that they live in. So most of the cities, towns and villages scattered throughout the empire are located along its mighty waterways. Few roads penetrate far into the deep forest, and those that exist must be maintained constantly, lest the woods reclaim the land man has cleared. So thick is the forest canopy that a traveller could walk for weeks without seeing the sun. Even a well-trodden or paved path will entirely disappear, as first undergrowth, then questing roots creep from the tree line like thieves in the night to undo what man has wrought. Only a fool would venture far from the safety of a town or fortress, for the darkness beneath those gnarled branches is the domain of the Beastmen. The sprawling forests of the old world are scattered with dark places, into which no wholesome creature wanders. Monoliths known as herdstones, around which the Bray herds gather, are each linked to the next by the hidden paths known only to the Beastmen. There are a multitude of other equally noisome places, including the haunted barrows of long-dead warrior kings, torrid living shrines to chaos, huge and ancient hag trees hung with the remains of the brave, foul-smelling labyrinths that house gibbering javasliths, and places that at first appear normal, but lead into dimensions of illusion and madness. The Beastmen rejoice in all such places, gathering there to praise the dark gods. The warherd's raucous braying can be heard for countless miles around, as can the screams of those sacrificed upon the bloody altars and unholy ground. On nights when Morslide waxes full, it is as if every beastman in the forest is braying, bellowing, barking, and cavorting in some feral ritual. At such times, the entire forest resonates to the harsh chanting led by the Bray shamans. The warherd's pyres rage high above the trees, and a miasma born of unclean concoctions and the stink of burning flesh creeps across the lands, touching the unquiet dreams of men and turning them into nightmares. So we mentioned Bray herds a lot. What exactly is a Bray herd? It's a good question, one that I intend to answer. So the Bray herd is a mustering of all the war herds in a given region. Each Bray herd is called by a chieftain, who, with his blood up and his eye aroused, determines that the herds must be gathered and war must be brought to the lands of man. The chieftain, being a surly, rancorous creature, will have plotted a mighty vengeance to visit upon his foe, and calculated according to his instinctive, animalistic nature how best to achieve his deadly goals. A chieftain does not foster his dreams of conquest and cruelty alone, for he will be counselled all the while by his Bray shaman. The Bray shaman will consult the portents and divine the will of the Chaos gods until he believes the time is right to call the Bray herd. It is upon the word of the chieftain that the Bray herd is called, but none would do so were it not for the affirmation of the Bray shaman's counsel. For beastmen are creatures of superstition, who only truly fear the wrath of the gods. The calling of the Bray herd starts with the building of a massive pyre, often made of the dried bones of sacrificial offerings, or from timber torn from the shrines of man's gods. Onto the fire, the Bray shaman casts a noxious preparation of leaves, lichens, and weeds, imbued with the ancient magic of the deep woods. Coiling mists glow with evil, creep out from the fire to twist and turn along the forest paths. The vapours inflame the rotten hearts of the beastmen with bloodlust, and draw them to the site of the Bray herd. To this magical summons is added the strident bellowing of the chieftain that would call the Bray herd, his hoarse cries resounding through the night. As the numbers of beastmen at the site increase, so the forests echo with their unruly braying, and the chanting of the shamans. One after another, each chieftain steps into the clearing, making his presence known. If the calling is taking place at a herdstone or similar structure, the chieftain will carve his mark into the surface, so that his coming might be known to all for years to come. So once the beastmen have gathered in great numbers, the caller of the Bray herd demands that the assembled chieftain submit to his will and follow him to war. Inevitably, another will challenge the caller's right to lead the Bray herd, and a ritual combat will ensue. If the combatants are mismatched, the challenge is over very quickly, for no quarter is sought or given. At that point, the victor will deliver the killing blow, and before the defeated chieftain has breathed his last breath, rip open his ribcage and draw forth the still-beating heart from within. There ensues a gory spectacle, in which the corpse is flayed by the victor, the skin to be added to his banner. Occasionally, another challenger steps forward. It is not unknown for a succession of challenges to be fought. When at last the victor is determined, there being no more chieftains willing or able to challenge the present incumbent, The assembled Bray Shamans will announce that the matter is decided, and declare the victor the Beast Lord. Sometimes the gathered Bray Shamans will fail to agree that the victor of the challenge has the blessings of the Dark Gods to lead the Bray Herd. They may disagree on the meanings of certain portents, read in the entrails of their foul-smelling offerings, or they may declare that these portents are entirely against the victor, and another must be found. The challenge begins all over again, until a Beast Lord who is able to demonstrate the blessings of the Dark Gods is victorious. So, you might be thinking, like, oh yeah, Beast Lords, yeah, they're in Total War, yeah, you can recruit them, they're one of the Lords, brilliant, they're the ones that lead the armies, but then so do Shamans, and that can also happen. So I'm going to tell you about that too. Yeah, I'll tell you about everything. Yeah, you're welcome. So on occasion, it will be a shaman rather than a chieftain that unites the war herds and unleashes an invasion upon the enemies of their kind. This is unusual, but will generally come about when a shaman is gifted or touched in some way by the power of chaos. The great Bray shaman Galak Beastai, for example, was lifted into the night sky within a nimbus of black lightning at the culmination of a ritual. In a booming voice not his own, Beastai declared war upon the rulers of Ostermark, and no chieftain dared challenge his right to gather and lead the Bray Herd. Beastai's 20,000-strong horde surged from the dead wood, the Bray shaman at his head, and cut a swathe through the towns of the upper reaches of the Talabek, putting thousands to death in grisly mass sacrifices before turning south and attacking the haunted land of Sylvania. Should one Bray Shaman call the Bray Herd and another challenge him, the two will fight a ritual challenge. The Shamans do not engage in physical combat themselves. Instead, they send their spirit questing into the surrounding forests to possess the mind of the largest and fiercest beasts they can find. The resulting combat is fought before the Herdstone, often destroying the camp and much of the surrounding forest in the process. Isn't that fun? So, you know, they have their own little magical jewels, their own way of doing things, but all very bestial and crazy. So, pretty cool. Pretty damn cool. So, although it's not actually in Total War, also you can have Minotaurs leading, Bray Herds. And that's slightly different. And also, we've already mentioned that, Shamans can possess beasts and things. So, that all sort of comes to this bit, the Call of the Doombull, which is very fun. So it is not only Wargors and Beast Lords that call the Bray Herd. Sometimes the dread Minotaurs known as Doombulls will do so instead. Whereas a chieftain will have plotted and schemed and taken counsel from his shaman, a Minotaur will simply be responding to a deep-seated urge to destroy. A ravenous hunger, known as the Blood Greed, comes upon them, and they bellow a deafening war cry that raises an echo in every beastman that hears it. Sometimes a shaman will attempt to guide the actions of a Doombull, but Minotaurs being simple creatures, his counsel must be suitably blunt and to the point. In all likelihood, simply informing the Doombull of a location of a large amount of meat, meat being men, dwarfs, or maybe elves, will be sufficient to bring on the Blood Greed. This is dangerous for the shaman, for he could be caught up in the general anarchy as scores of Minotaurs stampede to war. Fortunately, the Minotaurs believe it is bad luck to kill a Bray shaman, though accidents do of course still happen. Ambitious shamans may attempt to control Doombull instead of merely offering counsel. Some even go as far as to possess the body of a Doombull, using it to call the Bray Herd and lead a full-scale invasion. This is disapproved of by the other Bray Shamans, for when discovered it does great damage to their ability to guide events according to their plans. A Doombull that discovers it has been manipulated in such a manner will be driven into a rage and seek revenge against the offending shaman, his anger overcoming the ingrained prescription against harming such a creature. In the case of the Doombull Karak Stoneheart, the spirit bond was discovered almost instantly. Yet before the shaman's spirit could break free, the Doombull took his vengeance, smashing the Bray shaman's recumbent body to a pulp. The shaman was thereafter trapped in Karak's mind, and now both war constantly to assert their dominance over Karak's body. The towering Doombull is as likely to stand firm and unleash dark magics upon his foe as he is to charge headlong into combat. Isn't that fun? Isn't that the coolest thing? I'd love to see that, just sort of like a random dice roll, on a lord that, you tell to charge in and fight things. He just goes, no, I'm gonna cause, I don't know, leech life instead. Spirit leech rather. I'll use spirit leech instead. Yeah, that would be really funny in Total War. I'm not sure how they'd really do it, but it'd be great. So a lot of flavour there. So yeah, pretty crazy bunch, the Beastmen. But So you can see there's a break in VT there. Hopefully I've got some more showing now. I'm recording this before I actually have more VT, so who knows? But I will be attacking Middenheim pretty soon, I think. So I really should get back talking about Middenheim. But it is nice to talk about the Beastmen for a bit. I will be talking more about the Beastmen and their units and stuff. Hopefully when Chaos invade, because obviously they always throw in a load of Beastmen armies too. So hopefully we'll have more chance. But I think it's good to get some more Beastmen stuff done because they're pretty vital. They're a huge sort of influence on how the Empire works. So yeah, definitely worth talking about them. So anyway, let's talk about Middenheim some more. Rather nicely, it's actually about a siege of Middenheim, and we're besieging it now, so it all seems very appropriate. Except we're not the forces of chaos, so this is less appropriate. So the Storm of Chaos. In recent months, however, a deadly threat arose in the Chaos Wastes of the far north, and was to imperil not only Middenheim, but also the Empire and the whole of the Old World. A great champion of chaos rose to prominence, by the name of Archaon, Lord of the End Times. The nature of chaos is such that only a very strong leader can bring sufficient unity to command a large force. Archaon was such a leader. Under the banner of Chaos Undivided, he assembled a vast horde of chaos warriors, beastmen, demons, and worse creatures, including contingents loyal to all four of the great powers of chaos: Khorne the Blood God, Slaanesh the Prince of Pleasure, Tzeentch the Changer of Ways, and Nurgle the Plague God. This force, the most massive to come out of the Wastes in more than 200 years, quickly and ruthlessly overran the nation of Kislev and the northern parts of the Empire. Archaon knew that he could not leave the fortress city of Middenheim standing. He and his lieutenants converged on the city from the north, east and west, devastating the countryside as they came and laying waste to towns and castles. The main body of the Imperial army, aided by Dwarven and Elven allies, harried the forces of chaos as they came. They were led by the Emperor himself, along with the Grand Theogenist of the cult of Sigmar, who, I'm pretty sure at the time, wasn't Volkmar. I think he'd already died at this point in a duel against Archaon. But we'll get to that when we start talking about the Storm of Chaos when Chaos turn up. Storm of Chaos proper. So anyway, and included a remarkable warrior named Volten, in whose form some said that Sigmar had returned to save his empire. Despite furious fighting, they were unable to prevent Archaon's forces from linking up and surrounding the city of the White Wolf. Beastmen, many the descendants of those who had accompanied the Chaos incursion of 2 centuries ago, burst forth from their hiding places in the Drakwald and other desolate places, harassing Imperial forces and moving on Middenheim from the south. By means of some unholy bargain, Archaon had secured the allegiance of the Skaven clan Eshin, and the Ratmen spread throughout the tunnels and caverns of the Undercity. Within the city itself, cults of chaos worshippers came out of hiding to sabotage the defences and spread alarm among the inhabitants. The siege of Middenheim lasted for 15 days. Time and time again, the forces of chaos hurled themselves at the walls and gates of the city. Attackers and defenders died in their thousands. The Middenlanders were reinforced by many allies, including elves, dwarfs, refugee Kossars from Kislev, and knights errant from neighbouring Bretonnia, and the city's natural defences served it well. For more than a week, neither side was able to gain a significant advantage. Fighting was concentrated on the 4 great causeways serving the city's gates, although there were some bitter struggles against Skaven infiltrators from below. A great rock slide tore through the northern wall, but the breach was still protected by several hundred feet of sheer cliffs. And Archaon's forces were unable to capitalise on this opportunity. At last, with the news that Emperor Karl Franz and Volten, the Exalted of Sigmar, were approaching from the south and east, the attackers lifted the siege. Some moved southward into the Drakwald and east along the Talabheim Road to face this new threat, while others retreated northward into the Middle Mountains. As the attackers withdrew, the fighting forces of Middenheim pursued them. Graf Boris Todbringer led his Knights Panther from the city, along with High Priest Ulrich, accompanied by the Knights of the White Wolf and the elite Teutochen Guard. Each left a deputy to rule in his place. Graf Boris gave military command of the city to the Watch Commander Ulrich Schutzmann, while Ulrich appointed Deputy High Priest Klaus Leibniz to temporary control of the temple and the cult of Ulrich. The siege has left its mark on Middenheim, both inside and outside the walls. The 4 causeways still stand, but are pitted and cracked from the battle. The gates and walls show signs of the heavy fighting and powerful magics that accompanied the siege. Many of the city's towers are seriously damaged by attacks from Chaos Dragons and other airborne attackers. In the Undercity, many tunnels have collapsed. Some caved in during the fighting, and the defenders destroyed others as a precaution against Skaven attacks. hook-handed flayerkin hang in their dozens from the walls and the cliffs beneath, fixed where they died from the defenders' fire. Repairs are underway, but it will still be months, if not years, before Middenheim is restored to its former glory. And building it to its former glory, I think I mentioned a while ago, yeah, possibly in the last episode, possibly a bit earlier, Boris Todbringer enacted a penny on the pound tax, and that was mainly to restore Middenheim after this battle. So it's nice. There's actually sort of political things that were thought of, you know, by sort of the Warhammer writers. That yeah, this place was got completely trashed in a massive siege, but it needs to be rebuilt because chaos hasn't been dealt with yet. So there's been a tax levied against against people in order to rebuild, and I think that's really cool that that's actually something that they thought about. The ramifications of this. It isn't just, oh no, evil and our armies have been knackered and all the rest of it. No, good old politics. He's put up a tax. So I think that's really cool. So anyway, guys, I think I'll probably leave it here. So if you enjoyed this video, please do comment, like, and subscribe. And in the next episode, we'll definitely be going into Middenheim proper here. There's a heck of a lot of stuff to talk about. There's loads of different districts and temples and palaces and all sorts. So it should be really fun. Getting to know the place a bit better. So guys, like I say, comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good day, guys.